Welcome to the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals new and improved podcast series featuring great discussions, insight, and resources on all things related to education and administration.
So welcome back to the MASSP podcast. Today we are here with Steve Laatsch and Kirk Evenson, who are administrators in the Saline School District. So I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourselves and what your positions are, what your roles are on the wellness committee that we're talking about today.
Okay. We can start. I'm Steve Laatsch, Assistant Superintendent of Instruction. I've been in the district now for approximately 20 years, and over the course of the last 5 years in particular, we really started to look at social emotional wellness of our students, and so we want to take a more active role in that. And so far, we've been working on a variety of different projects and activities and getting student input about what are the kinds of things that we need to provide better support for our entire student body.
Hi, I'm Kirk Evenson, Assistant Principal here at Saline High School. I've been with the district here now 5 years and in education 25 years. And as a former alternative ed principal, I can tell you that the social emotional needs are vast. And here at Saline High School, it's no secret. We have some issues here too. And we are constantly, as a wellness committee, trying to find ways to connect our students, like Steve said, but also supports in the classroom for our teachers to use so they can better identify what will work well for their students. So we're excited to be here.
So there's a lot of emphasis being put on social emotional wellness right now, nationally, especially in Michigan. Where is this coming from?
I do think that some of this is overscheduling of students is certainly part of it, especially at the younger levels. We see that our student body's involved in so many different things that there is a level of anxiety around that. And the days of students having downtime, being able to go out and play and do some of those things are becoming fewer and fewer. And I think there's something to that we need to address.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what Steve pointed out, less physical play and more screen time for kids. They're using social media and devices at an ad nauseum rate these days, and we don't know what overuse of screen time may lead to. I'm sure we're going to find out a decade from now, but we definitely see an increase right now.
Chelsea High School is promoting a viewing of the movie Screenagers. Do we know anything? Have you heard anything about that?
When we offered the viewing of the movie Asst back in the fall, we invited and partnered up with Chelsea schools and Dexter schools. And so it sounds like Chelsea has reciprocated, and they've brought in an expert. They're going to provide an opportunity for parents and teenagers to learn about the dangers of too much screen time.
I know that the average student is on a device 6.5 hours a day or some rate like that. And certainly we talk about at the high school level that even though we are certainly supporting and encouraging the use of technology in the school, we don't want students on a device more than 50% of their school day because they do need other experiences. They're going home to, like Kirk Evenson was saying, using their devices all the time and probably too much screen time, and that's what that documentary looks at in Chelsea.
So what are schools doing, or what can they do to better support social emotional needs?
One of the things that we've talked a lot about lately in our wellness committee meetings is the idea that we need to help students understand that they need to set themselves up for success in an individual basis, and that in fiercely competitive school districts, and I will say Saline is definitely a competitive school district, sometimes our student body feels like there's only one path for success, and that path often provides a great deal of stress, maybe trying to get into a really prestigious college or university. And even though that's certainly a good path for some of our students, we have so many other students that have great talents and can be really successful at other colleges and universities, trade schools. Some aren't going to college, and we need to make sure that we individualize more the ability to say to students that there's a path for you that you all can be successful in, depending upon the supports you get. And I think we just need to keep working on that message over and over again.
Do you feel that by pushing and really highlighting more CTE type classes and courses that may help kind of identify that there are more paths, and that, we see a lot of articles that are out now that say, trade schools, or we're running out of people for trades, right? We've got everybody going to the university. What does this look like? Do you think that by highlighting those paths that may help this at all?
I mean, there's no question we try to be a very comprehensive high school, meaning that students have lots of different opportunities, and we really do want to promote the great CTE programs that we have here. But some of this is about the community also supporting these different paths and avenues too. That this isn't just about the school district providing opportunity; it's the parents in our community and the students themselves have to, value that path, and we need to help them see that that's really a viable option.
Yeah, and like Steve said, in addition to supports for students, we're also trying to create lots of PD opportunities for our staff to recognize what students are dealing with, when you see anxiety, what kind of things you can do to help.
We hosted a viewing of Angst, and that was back in October. Mm-hmm. So talk about that a little bit. How did it come up? Who did we have? How was it organized? Talk a little bit about what that all looked like.
Okay, so the movie Angst was really an opportunity that Steve Laatsch and I came in touch with a year ago. There was a community viewing in Ann Arbor, and we were invited to participate in that. And so we really felt like this movie, this documentary, really hit some of the major issues spot on, and said some things in a way that we really couldn't, with some professional athletes, with some experts, and some interesting data. And they were able to just interview some real life, teenagers and instructors that are dealing with these issues on the front lines. In addition to that, we offered the viewing of the movie for all of our teachers, K-12. We also had an evening viewing where we brought the community in and partnered with Chelsea Schools, neighboring district, and we had an expert panel of folks that were available for a Q&A session following the viewing of the movie, and it really was organic and brought up some really neat opportunities, some good questions, some great participation. I think there was a lot of community growth that night.
Who was on the panel?
We had a variety of different people. We had our high school principal, David Raff, because we want to make sure we have some local. We had some of our school counselors and social workers, a former U of M athlete, and we had a great panel, and it was great because they were really talking from an authentic point of view. One of the things that I thought was great about this documentary, this Angst documentary, is it really points out that we all have anxiety. We all deal with anxiety. I always tell people I certainly am anxious at times. And because we do need to feel that being anxious is normal. I think sometimes students become anxious and they think that this is something that's really abnormal. It's really all going through a level of anxiety. And some anxiety is good. Before a sporting event, before a test, a level of that is good. It's just that we need to help identify students that are really struggling beyond what we would say would be a normal level of anxiety that all of us are dealing with.
Yeah, in addition to that normal level of anxiety, appropriate ways to deal with it as opposed to unhealthy methods like we've seen some of our students deal with.
Can you talk about, because we've had these discussions, I know, with our counselors and social workers here, especially around the movie Angst, what are some healthy and unhealthy ways that we see students dealing with anxiety?
Well, sure. So some healthy ways might be getting some exercise, the appropriate amount of sleep before you have a big test coming up or a sporting event. Kids get nervous about the silliest of things. As prom season approaches, they get worried about finding a date, or will that certain someone say yes? And some unhealthy ways that we've seen, sadly, cutting can be one that we see often with middle school and high school age children. Self-medication, which gets into kind of some use and abuse of alcohol and some other substances, and I can't think of anything else.
We talk about also trying to figure out ways to promote. We certainly want to promote great academics that we have in Saline schools, but we also talk about how we try to promote other things that are important for students to demonstrate. We are working on what's known as a graduate profile in the school district, where it's a number of student attributes that we want to see from our student body before they graduate. And those are things like positive communicator, being a great collaborator. And so we are really promoting and pushing that in the district to a point where we now have an awards evening in the spring, where we not only look at students that do really well academically and celebrate their success, but we also celebrate the success of students that are able to demonstrate those positive communication skills, being great collaborators, because those are often the skills that are going to lead students to be really successful in life, and they need to know that, because even if a student is not great at academics, they certainly may have a lot of other skills that employers value even more than the academic base.
And having been in the building when Mr. F started those Compass Awards last year, it was really exciting to see the process of how those were created and how they were chosen. Teachers submitting names of students, of seniors who they felt modeled those, and seeing you're used to seeing the names of the top 20%, or those who are involved in 6 clubs and 8 sports and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it was neat to see the students who get missed almost be recognized for things that they're really, really good at. It was very exciting.
Another thing that I'm excited about is, so Kirk has organized the wellness committee meetings this year, and our last one was just great because we had so many students present. And really, the bottom line, we need to be asking our students more about what we can and should be doing to provide greater support. And one of the students last week when we had this meeting simply was pointing out, and I thought this was really good, is you can be successful at any high school and not take a boatload of AP classes. And he pointed out that he's not taking any AP classes right now, but yet he feels like he has a lot of talents in those areas that support our graduate profile, that positive communication, those types of things. And I think there's something to that we need to hear from the students to be able to talk to each other to say, hey, look, it's certainly a lofty goal to get into the University of Michigan or an Ivy League school, or those are great for our students that are pushing on that. But there's a vast number of other opportunities for students too, and we need our students to talk to each other so that they can understand that they're all kind of going through that and need to support each other. And I thought it was good the way we got students together there.
Yeah, Steve, I agree. Those soft skills, those intangibles are really important for our kids to have. And our Compass work does articulate that and really brings that out. It's nice to be able to exemplify those students that excel in those areas.
Kirk, talking about the Wellness Committee, so we're familiar with it because it's in our building and it's in our district, but talk about the makeup of the Wellness Committee and how it was put together, who serves on it, for anyone who's not familiar with it.
Sure. So our Wellness Committee is really a group of collection of professionals and community members, students, counselors, social workers, administrators, teachers from the entire district, K-12. And the function of our committee is really to come together and talk about some of the things that we know that we've done well, but also where are we missing? Where are some of our gaps? What are some things we could be doing in a very proactive sense to provide further training and professional development for our staff and reaching out to our community and providing structure and support for our kids. It's a great function for that group of professionals to spend time together.
Agreed.
I think there's a lot to be said about what you just mentioned about the community members in K-12, because it's not just our counselor's job, right? We rely on them because they have the training. We rely on our social workers, but it's really all of our job to make sure that we're keeping an eye out and that we're trying our best to listen to the students and what they're saying.
Right. And I'm intrigued about the idea of involving the community more. We are learning from Dexter Schools, which is another district close to us, that they are doing a study with Dr. David Gleason, and he's done a study in a book called At What Cost? Defending Adolescent Development in Fiercely Competitive Schools. And basically he's working with the Dexter community to raise awareness around what is likely happening in the Dexter community, And they have approximately 300 community members participated in the opening activity a month ago. And I'm interested to see where that goes in terms of their continuing to talk about that. And intrigued a little bit to potentially try something like that in the Saline schools, maybe not with Dr. David Gleason, but just some other method to get our community talking more about this and sustaining the work.
When you, because the two of you went to their opening conversation, when you say the community book study, who's involved in this?
Well, it's parents and community members that are interested. In other words, their superintendent, Chris Timmis, sent out a letter to the entire community inviting them to participate. And then they purchased the book for any community member that wanted to participate. And they're organizing a series of events to be able to learn about it, read about it, and then discuss it. And then where they go from there, we'll have to see.
It'll be interesting to follow up. I'll have to get them too. So kind of wrapping up here, how can we better, from where we're sitting ahead of this, in some way, we've got a great wellness committee, we've done some things with the community. How can we better support the social emotional needs of teachers and administrators?
Well, I like the Dexter concept, that book study. They're offering that for all their K-12 instructors as well as their community. And Dr. Laatsch and I were actually talking a couple weeks ago about conducting possibly a book study here in Saline, and he was very interested in that. And I think that would be another way that we could create some outreach, here in our community, both within the school and surrounding the school. And Saline is such a warm and friendly community, and everyone supports our K-12 schools here in Saline, so I think it would be a hit.
Yeah, but that is a good point, Theresa, that we also need to not only support our students, but our staff as well. After we viewed the Angst documentary with the teaching staff, a number of our teachers did say, hey, we often need support for our social emotional wellness, and that's really accurate, because we know that teaching and working in a school district is a high pace, high energy, can be a very stressful job, and we want to make sure that we do provide greater supports. And I think some of that is getting them involved and spending some time talking. We talk about the need to keep the dialogue going and help identify staff that need those additional supports. After
the Angst viewing, we had a student come to the school board meeting and just do a quick review of what happened with that and how the mental health and wellness is going at the high school. And one of the things that she said was that it's a part of the conversation now. And I thought that was so powerful, because when we talk to a lot of parents and a lot of community members, they talk about how afraid the kids are to have those conversations or to say anything about it. But I feel like here, and hearing them say it too, it's not like that. If you are open and you are responsive to it, they'll tell you if they're struggling. And I thought it was so amazing that the students feel that there's this culture of being able to have the conversation, that anxiety is part of the conversation and it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that wouldn't have been okay, 10 years ago.
Well, awesome. Thank you both for this dialogue. And if anyone listening wants to get a hold of you, if you're on Twitter or email, Kirk, how can they get a hold of you?
At Kirk Evenson, my Twitter handle, and evansonk@salineschools.org by email. Welcome any input or questions.
We'll put those out too.
Right, and I'm at Educate Saline is my tagline.
Awesome. So we'll send out emails and Twitter handles, and I'm sure there will be a lot of people following up with both of you. So thank you both very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for having us.